And now, our very special guest and his witness, Mr. Matt Kellison. So a little bit about Matt. He is a retired U.S. Coast Guard Chief Warrant Officer. And because you're a warrant officer, you get kudos, because I also was. Awesome. Army, though. So, okay, so you're Chief Warrant Officer for 30 years of distinguished service in aviation engineering as a helicopter search and rescue air crewman. I was an air crewman, too, as a matter of fact, in the Marine Corps. It's a long story. Doesn't matter. You hold a Bachelor of Science in Aeronautical Technology from Purdue and a Master of Science in Aviation and Aerospace Management from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. Following your retirement in 2022, Matt joined MUFON and currently serves as the State Director for Florida, as well as a member of MUFON's Experiencer Resource Team. He has investigated more than 170 UFO sightings and has worked closely with over 40 experiencers that report contact and abduction events. So the Experiencer Resource Team is really set up to help those people who've had more than just a sighting. You know, I've had some type of experience with an ET or something. So with that, let me stop share. And Mr. Kellison, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jared. I want to thank you and Anna for having us on, myself and the witness in this case, John. And I also want to thank John because, you know, most of the experiencers I work with are not very keen on having their story broadcast. And John, John's a pseudonym, obviously for his real name, but successful businessman, has a lot to lose by coming out and with this story. And I just think I am so happy that he entrusted me to investigate his case. I worked on it for about 10 months, and we both put a lot of time and effort into this. And so I'm very excited to share this. It's a great case. It's pretty involved, so strap yourselves in and we'll get started. So go ahead and hit share here. I think that went through. Did you get it, Jared? Okay, here we go.
Yeah, sorry about that. I clicked the wrong thing and everything went nuts. So, okay.
No worries. We maximize the screen here. So you guys see that?
Yep, looking good.
All right, well, let's get going. So this is MUFON case number 142206. Introduction's already been done by Jared, so we'll move on. And just I put a confidentiality warning in here for those MUFON field investigators that are watching this who have access to the case. Please do not share any of the witnesses' information. We want to protect their identity to the fullest extent possible. So just throw that warning in there. So the event background. In December 2021, the witness, who is a lifelong experiencer, was sitting on the back porch of his golf course townhome in Key West, Florida, deleting old photos and videos from his cell phone's gallery, when he noticed an unfamiliar video that was recorded on Saturday, June 12th, 2021 at 1:15 a.m. The video appeared to have been taken aboard a craft of some type, showed the blinking lights of a nearby cell tower through some type of window. In the foreground, there are several entities that can be seen, including at least two grays. And here's a weird one, two frog-like beings, which was new to me when I started this. I'd never heard of that before. And a tall reptilian being. The witness underwent several hypnotherapy sessions to help him recover his missing memories from this event with hypnotherapist and abduction researcher Yvonne Smith and Dr. Thomas Beck of Sacred Encounters in Seattle, Washington. He had previously undergone multiple hypnosis sessions in New York City with Bud Hopkins in the mid-1990s. With their assistance, he was able to remember the events in greater detail, which are summarized in this presentation. So this is the first frame of the video. I'll play it multiple times throughout the presentation, but this will just kind of whet your appetite. And it'll give you some reference. So I'll go through this once, and then we'll go through it again, and a lot of it will make more sense once we get into it. So. All right. Did anybody hear audio on that? I think I forgot to click the box for to share audio, but there's not a whole lot of audio with it. But um, but yeah, so that's the video. And it may not make much sense now, but later on I'll get to that and we'll explain everything.
Yeah, no, we did not hear audio out here.
No, okay. Yeah, like I said, there's really wasn't a whole lot of audio to it. But and I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can without backing out and going back in, but yeah, but I think we're good. Like I said, there wasn't a whole lot with the audio that really needs to be covered, but we'll get to all of that here in a minute. But first, before we get into the video, I'd like to go over some of the witnesses' previous abductions and high strangeness events because a lot of these are just as incredible as the video contact event in Key West. So uh, let's see. So this is the witness's first abduction. It occurred in New Rochelle, New York, and that's in the Hudson Valley. This was 1972, and the witness was 7 years old. So the experiencer was in his bed at home just before sunrise when he saw daylight behind his bedroom window shade. At that moment, a voice spoke to him and said, "It's all right. We're not going to hurt you." Scared but strangely reassured by the voice, he leaned toward the window and opened the shade, only to find himself face to face with a gray wolf. The wolf, standing upright, reached out with its hand and told him, "Take my hand. We're not going to hurt you." The experiencer reached out and took the wolf's hand and was immediately pulled through the closed window without any resistance. He and the wolf floated in a standing position above the ground, gliding along the front path of the house. Waiting for them in the pathway, about 15 feet away, was a girl he recognized as his 10-year-old neighbor and babysitter wearing her nightgown. The three floated silently together down the slanted driveway toward a large silver saucer craft that hovered just above the power lines. Years later, during hypnosis regression conducted by Bud Hopkins, he recalled this experience in greater detail and noted, "That wasn't a wolf, it was a gray alien." He realized the wolf's paw that seemingly came through the window to take his hand was actually the hand of a gray. So a few years later, New Rochelle, New York again, 1974, the witness is 9 years old. He woke up in the floor beside of his bed around 3 a.m. one evening, screaming in pain. His parents and grandmother, who was visiting, rushed into his room. He had a broken clavicle, and his pajamas were streaked with grass stains and dirt, specifically around the knees and elbows. His parents took him to the emergency room, but no one could explain how he had suffered or sustained such injuries falling out of bed, and they were unable to account for the stained clothing. Interestingly, there was no further discussion of the incident. Years later, again with Bud Hopkins, he recalled being dropped from a blue beam of light during this event. He also remembered during childhood at sleepaway camp being scolded at least twice for vanishing for hours at a time with no memory of where he had been. Fast forward a few years later, quite a few years later, this is in central Manhattan, 1989. The witness is 24 years old at this point. During this time, he was working in New York City. One Friday afternoon after work, he was walking north along the east side of Columbus Avenue. As he reached an intersection, he waited to cross to the opposite side of the street, intending to continue towards Central Park. The intersection was crowded with pedestrians gathered on both sides, all waiting for the light to change. When the crosswalk opened, he stepped off the curb and immediately spotted an extremely tall man walking with the oncoming crowd. The experiencer said the man reminded him of the male model Fabio and was between 7'2" and 7'8", with blonde hair, blue eyes, and he was wearing a brown leather bomber jacket. He said that the man clearly stood out, but for some reason, no one else in the crowd seemed to notice. As they walked closer, he thought to himself, "Hey, that's one of the Nordics." At that point in his life, he was 24 years old and had been reading about UFOs and aliens from a young age. He said that as soon as the thought popped into his head, the tall man turned his head toward him and they locked eyes from about 25 feet away until they passed. The experiencer is 5 feet 7 inches and would normally be lost in such a crowd, yet the being never took his eyes off him. When he got to the other corner, the crowd dissipated, leaving only the Nordic being on the opposite corner, still intently staring at him as he stood there feeling nervous. The experiencer quickly turned and walked away. So this is Westchester County, which is part of Hudson Valley. So this was March of 1994. The witness was 28 years old at the time. So this evening at approximately 11:10 p.m., the experiencer was at his friend's home in a sparsely populated suburban area in New York's Hudson Valley. The area was extremely dark with no street lights and only one neighboring home approximately 100 feet away. Standing outside on a raised deck, 16 to 18 feet off the ground, he observed an extremely bright orange light through the leafless trees beyond the backyard. Shifting slightly for a clearer view, he immediately recognized the object as a UFO and yelled to his friend, "Get out here quick, there's an effing UFO in the woods." He described the UFO as roughly 50 feet in diameter and 40 feet tall, sitting on the ground in the neighboring backyard. Both men observed the craft for approximately 45 seconds before his friend went inside to retrieve a pair of binoculars, which revealed a clear view of the structured craft with an open hatch on the bottom touching the ground. About 20 feet to the left of the craft stood a small gray, approximately 4 feet tall, wearing a tight-fitting black jumpsuit with smooth dolphin-like skin, thin torso, very long arms, long hands and fingers, and thin legs. They observed the profile of the being and noted the large black eye, tiny nostril and ear with only a slit for a mouth. He suggested that they synchronize their watches. It was 11:17 p.m. The next thing either witness remembered was regaining awareness inside the home on the living room floor at 12:40 a.m. with no recollection of the intervening 1 hour and 23 minutes. He asked, weren't we just out back looking at a UFO? They rushed outside only to find that the area was dark and there was no UFO. A few years later, he underwent regression therapy with Bud Hopkins, during which he recalled additional details of the encounter. He described 3 gray entities floating through his friend's backyard toward the house. When they reached the deck 18 feet below them, the beings floated in a line up the stairs to the deck. He said they all floated 4 or 5 inches off the ground. When they reached him and his friend, they were both floated upright like the beings, forming a line, and they began to move down the wooden stairs. They went single file through the wooden gate at the top of the stairs and floated through the backyard to the craft. They then found themselves sitting naked on a bench behind a half wall in a large, brightly illuminated room. He recognized the inside of this craft as the exam room from one of his previous abductions. There were no visible lights inside the craft, and a light just seemed to emanate from the bases of the floor and ceiling edges. The exam room contained 2 long metal tables like a vet's office. When he found himself on one of the tables, his friend was on the other side on the other table in the room. Both were naked with some type of suction device covering their privates. His next memory was waking up in his friend's living room on the floor. So fast forward a few more years. This is Denver, Colorado, 1997. The experiencer age is 32 at this point. So he and his fiancee were in Denver, Colorado for a friend's wedding and were staying at the Embassy Suites Hotel near Rockies Baseball Stadium, or Coors Field. On the first night of the visit, he woke up between 2 and 5 a.m. and felt the top of his head. Noticed that it was wet. He turned on the lamp and saw that his hand was covered with blood, and there was a 6-inch spot on the pillow that was completely saturated. His fiancée awakened and upon seeing the blood everywhere exclaimed, "My God, what happened?" He replied, "I don't know, but I may have been abducted." She told him, "I think you should go to the bathroom and wash it off." Oddly, he simply stated, "No, I think we should just go back to sleep." He then turned the pillow over, turned off the light, and then went back to sleep. In the morning, he noted 3 purple bruises on his right hip. The bruises consisted of 3 triangles that formed a larger triangle measuring 2/3 by 2/3 by 2/3. Each triangle was 1/3 of an inch. So the equilateral triangle, so 2/3 of an inch per side. He recognized these bruises because he had experienced the same bruising twice as an adult in his 20s on the inside of his left forearm. During one of the regressions with Bud Hopkins, he clearly remembered a gray floating to the left of the bed in his hotel room. The being was chalky white with a skin-tight black jumpsuit again. Two other grays were at the foot of the bed. He was then manipulated out of bed and found himself floating upright, standing in a single file with the entities, then floating in line through the air conditioner unit, through the wall, and through the window. He then found himself floating in the air outside of the hotel and observed a silver disc that was 30 feet above him with a blue beam coming out of the bottom. He followed the first two grays as each entered the blue beam, and they were pulled upward into the bottom of the craft. His next memory was standing naked inside of the craft in a bright room with two exam tables that were on the opposite side of him, and noted that the blue beam generator was a half tube blue beam elevator device, and he can probably explain that more when we get to the end. But that was to his left. In front of him were a group of grays examining two other naked people on the tables. One was a Caucasian male. The other one was a Caucasian female with red hair. The experiencer's fiance had reddish hair. However, he wasn't sure if that was her or not. He then remembered being on the dark side of the craft, sitting in a chair that he described as brushed aluminum with all right angles that resembled a large dentist chair. The chair was very cold and swiveled around as if on ball bearings. The chair tilted back slightly, and he could see what looked like a metal skull cap that descending from the ceiling and to cover the top of his head. A long metal rod resembling a dentist drill then extended down and began to drill into his head. The experiencer, who is balding, still has a visible scar on the crown of his head from this. A few years later, this is June or July of 1999, Pond Eddy, New York, along the Delaware River. The experiencer is 33 at this point, and he's with 40 friends that were on an annual camping canoe trip on the Delaware River. One evening during the trip, he and his friends had set up camp along the shoreline. He was about 40 feet away from the campfire with four of his friends when he observed a craft coming over the tree line on the New York side of the river about 280 yards away. The craft went over the river and turned right toward them, heading north up the river. The craft moved 5 to 6 miles per hour, about 60 feet over the river, and he said to his friends, "Hey dudes, there's a UFO," and they all observed the craft. He described the craft as looking similar to the bell-shaped Kecksburg UFO from December 9th, 1965. The gold brass-colored craft was approximately 18 feet tall and had blue, green, and red lights around the base that were about 3 feet in diameter. There was one small single porthole round window on the side of the craft, and the top of the craft had an antenna on the top. On the top. It was completely silent and only about 100 feet away at its closest approach. And one thing to note, the river was approximately 300 feet wide where they were located. After traveling another 80 feet past the witnesses, the craft made a right turn and disappeared over the tree line in the direction of the Kittatinny Canoe Rental Campground. After the craft disappeared, he went back to the campfire with his friends, and no one said another word about it. 8 months later, he called Jerry's Three River Canoe Basin campground to plan the next year's trip. The owner's wife, who he was friends with, mentioned, "If this year's trip is as good as last year's, you boys will have another great time." He asked what she meant by that, and she recalled the UFO sighting. She explained, "We have a newspaper article from the local paper where over 20 people along the river reported seeing it. The newspaper article from Pond Eddy was hanging on the wall in the campground's office." The following year, he said he and his friends made T-shirts for the group with a UFO printed on it to commemorate the sighting. So, while reviewing the specific details of his sessions with Bud Hopkins in the mid-1990s, the experiencer mentioned that he recalled being aboard a smaller craft resembling the sport model UFO described by Bob Lazar, or something similar. He stated that the interior of the craft was extremely confined, requiring him to lie uncomfortably on his side on the floor. Two short grays were piloting the craft, seated in small chairs arranged around a central cylindrical structure. While lying on the floor, he reported looking out through a circular window and observed a cityscape below that he was confident was not Earth. He described the exterior environment as appearing with within a single color spectrum, with hills, trees, buildings rendered in a whitewashed lavender hue. In contrast, when he looked back inside the craft, the interior colors appeared normal and within the typical visible spectrum. He said that he could not recall which specific abduction event this experience was associated with, and he asked Bud Hopkins to help him explore the memory further. According to him, Bud declined to pursue that line of inquiry, choosing instead to focus on more localized aspects of the abduction process and interactions with the entities. The witness indicated that he would like to revisit this episode with a future hypnosis session. So, suffering from ongoing headaches for about 2 weeks. This was, I believe, 30. Let's see, I've got the share screen covering the the date and the year, but I think that was 33, if I'm not mistaken. 35. There we go. So suffering from ongoing headaches for about two weeks, the experiencer sought help from Dr. Albert Szabo, a neurologist, and he was the chair of the Department of Neurology at Northern Westchester Hospital in Mount Kisco, New York. The experiencer met with Dr. Szabo after having an MRI, who told him, "We found something benign." It turned out to be a Rathke's cleft cyst, a small benign tumor found on the pituitary gland of about 2% of the world's population. These are typically the size of a pea just above the nasal cavity. He asked the doctor an unusual question. "If I took your pen and balanced a BB the same size as the cyst and jammed it up my nose and hit it really hard at the bottom," and before he finished, Dr. Szabo unexpectedly interrupted, responding, "Do you think you've been abducted by aliens? I asked because I've had two Rathke's cleft cyst patients about the same age as him. He was 45 in the past 4 years that also have Rathke's cleft cysts and believe that it's an alien implant. One was a female attorney who told him, 'I think that it's an alien implant. I'm an abductee.' The other was a male CPA who explained that he was a lifelong abductee as well. The experiencer was the third patient in 4 years with the same claim. He told Dr. Szabo of his unexplained nosebleeds as a child, and they discussed a theoretical study with 100 abductees undergoing MRI screenings and filling out an abduction survey to see the prevalence of Rathke's cleft cysts with experiencers. He noted David Jacobs and Bud Hopkins together once stated that they believed 2 to 3% of the world's population was being abducted, so it wouldn't surprise him if the two were related. Sadly, Dr. Szabo passed away from an apparent suicide on April 2nd, 2024, only a few months after the experiencer unsuccessfully tried to reach him. So this next event, this was Parkland, Florida, 2007. The experiencer at this point is 35 years old. And around this time, the experiencer had another strange encounter. This time, he and his friend and his friend's stepfather were in his friend's backyard barbecuing while their families were inside the house. Outside, the experiencer observed a flash of light in the sky. After a short time, the flash reappeared. After the second strobe-like flash, he began counting to himself 1 1,000, 2 1,000, until it flashed again at 13. He pointed the craft out to the two other men, and they watched the spot in the sky while he counted out loud. They watched the light for at least another 7 or 8 times, all while discussing what it couldn't be. By their estimates, it was approximately a quarter mile away and 1,000 feet in altitude. It never moved nor made any sound. The next thing he remembered was standing near the grill, looking at everybody and discussing how all the food was burned to a crisp and far beyond being edible. Approximately 1 hour had passed that no one could account for. The adult women in the house also seemed to experience this time lapse with no memory. Additionally, his friend noticed deep scoop marks on his body and showed them to him. The event was only discussed once thereafter. So that brings us to the Key West event that includes the video. So this was, like I said, this was Key West, Florida. The event occurred June 12th, 2021. 1:15 in the morning, and the experiencer at this point was age 55. And I'm going to play this one more time for you. And I think there's a couple more times in here, but just pay attention to, to this. We'll get into like frame by frame analysis here in just a second. I just want to say, like, watching it on the media player on the PowerPoint, or watching it like on a YouTube video or something like that. Most media players don't give you the full 30 frames per second. They give you like every second or every third frame. So even just viewing it like this, you're missing out on a lot of detail without going through every single frame. So I had the opportunity to do that, and what I found was absolutely fascinating. So
Hey, Matt, you have
Sure.
the audio this time?
I don't think that I can turn the audio on. What I can do is maybe stop share. Let's see. Jared, what I'll do is, I'll stop share and then share again if that's okay. And then I'll remember to turn the audio on. So
Yep.
yeah, here we go. Share sound.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. We'll see if this is the right slide, but here we go. Let's see.
Holy crap. Holy crap. This is crazy. Fuck.
All right. Were you guys able to hear that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Holy
great.
crap.
Yep, we can hear it.
All right, fantastic. So here's the description of the event. Early in the morning on Saturday, June 12th, 2021, just after 1 a.m., the witness arrived at his home in Key West, Florida. After parking his car, he walked down a pathway between an adjacent townhome towards his door located on his left. Straight ahead of him, the pathway continued on toward the golf course on the other side of the gated fence. As he walked down the sidewalk pathway, he observed a gray entity with a white head and black jumpsuit again, just standing there at the end of the walkway. He remembered being paralyzed and floated several inches off the ground before being led in line with the gray through the gated fence, and out onto the golf course. Once out on the golf course, he observed a large orange glowing sphere positioned near the fairway. He was guided directly toward the object and realized that he was being floated onto the craft via a ramp connected to a hatch underneath. He did not recall seeing any landing gear and therefore could not determine whether the craft was resting on the ground or hovering. Once inside the craft, he entered a curved hallway that extended in both directions and was led approximately 8 to 9 feet to the left toward a brightly illuminated white lab exam room. The hallway contained a bench he recalled from a previous abduction that we just talked about, the one that was in Westchester County in 1994. During that earlier incident, he and his friend had been seated on the same or a very similar bench. After passing through the exam room, he was led into the dark control room that appears in the video. This room was extremely large and had a large wraparound window that showed a cell phone tower with 2 red obstruction lights flashing every 2 seconds outside. On the overhead ceiling bulkhead, there was a large ringed light with a spinning disc object on the bottom. Above the light was an organic-looking appendage that was moving at high speed around the ceiling. A lot of people see this video for the first time and they think, oh, this looks like a ceiling fan. Well, here in a second, we'll get into why it is not a ceiling fan. To his right was a doorway to the brightly illuminated exam room where he had just been. And so I don't know if you can see my cursor, but this is what I'm talking about right here at the edge. Some things to note. So this is the bright exam room, and you'll notice that there's no bleed over from the on the right-hand side of the screen, there's no bleed. And this is an AI rendering, but when you see the video again, you'll notice it at the end. But this exam room, the light does not bleed over into the dark room. And it's delineated by this really weird rainbow colored strip. And I have actual, screenshots of that as well. And then here's the cell phone tower. Here's the disc I was talking about, which is like rotating counterclockwise. Here's the ringed light up here. And then the thing that you see that looks like looks like a ceiling fan is I rendered it with this blob right here, and we'll get into that in more detail here in a second. Okay, so all right, so once inside,
Hey, Matt.
Yes.
Matt, before we get too much into this, we get some bleed over from your control thing there. If you could press Control Shift Alt H, I think it is, all that will go away. And then if it needs to come back, like to stop screen or to stop share, whatever, you can just hit Escape and it'll come back. But right now, it's kind of blocking out part of that.
Oh, you're talking about the share screen part right here. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I think that happens when I touch my mouse. Is it better
It
right now?
does.
Okay.
It's there right now, but I'm saying though is you can, I believe it's Control Shift H or Control Shift Alt H, and it'll disappear. There we go.
Okay. Awesome.
Then,
all right.
Yep. Okay.
Right,
Sorry. Go ahead, sir.
All right, sounds good. So once inside this control room, this dark control room, he observed two frog-like entities to his left, dressed in black uniforms, along with several grays. Two of the grays were approximately 5 feet tall. One stood behind the frog-like beings he was wearing a dark V-neck shirt, while the other to the right wore a dark gray uniform without a V-neck. And he's the second gray. Now there's a shorter gray behind, but the second tall gray with the gray colored uniform, I was not able to find that at least a clear shot of that being in the video. I do have like one shot of his head that kind of gives the where his location is, and I'll show you that when we get to the frames. There were several other additional shorter grays, approximately 3 feet tall, that were also present in the room. And to the right stood a 5 foot tall reptilian humanoid with a head resembling that of a Tyrannosaurus Rex, dressed in a light beige monk-like tunic. During the encounter, he received telepathic communications from the beings and perceived that some held specific duties. He sensed that the tall gray to his right as having more militaristic or security-oriented role. The two frog beings appeared to be serving as doctors or healers. He perceived the taller frog as a male with a business-like demeanor, while the shorter frog appeared to be more feminine and projected a strong sense of empathy and care toward him, which he found reassuring. He believed the reptilian entity with the dinosaur-like head was a scientist of some sort. The witness further sensed that the tall gray, who appeared to be in charge, was becoming impatient with the delay he was causing, possibly related to his recording with his cell phone. At this point, he reported receiving a telepathic message from the being stating, "You have a job to do, you have a mission," though he remains unclear about the nature of that assignment. He perceived no communication or emotional presence from the smaller grays in the background and described them as being indifferent. Although the female frog doctor or healer did not communicate telepathically, she projected a strong impression that he would be okay. The witness recalled after recording with his phone, the female frog assisted him in sitting down in the central chair made of brushed metal and was positioned on a slightly elevated platform. And then here is the drawing that the witness put together, and you can see. So to the left would be the dark control room, and you can see where the brushed metal chair is by that half wall, or by the splitting wall. The half wall is down there at the bottom near the doorway, and then you can see the bench is at the very bottom. And then the control console all the way on the left-hand side of the craft, and that's where the window is. And then that entry, the blue beam elevator, that's the position of that up in the upper right hand corner about like the 2 o'clock position, and then like at the 1 o'clock position is there's a slight like extension of the wall where the doorway is, and then that's I believe is that white strip that you see at the very end of the video. So here's the analysis. Let me grab a drink of water real quick. Okay. So the 43-second video was recorded with a Samsung Galaxy S21 on July 12th, 2021 at 1:15 a.m. Now, in 2021, the Samsung Galaxy S21 was probably the most advanced cell phone on the market. It had the most advanced camera system. And so, a lot of people say, well, why is this video so grainy? Well, I believe it has something to do with the environment on board the craft, because, like I said, the S21 is a remarkable camera. At the time, it was state of the art. So the video itself consists of 1,270 discrete frames that were recorded in 1:1 format at 30 frames per second. Here's the video
Holy
one more time.
crap. Holy crap. It's crazy. Fuck.
You can see the frog, his eye blinks, which is pretty interesting. And then there was a reflection on the bottom there. That was the shorter frog. And then coming up here is the white strip that separates the dark room with the light room. Okay, so the video image and image analysis methodology. I just wanted to touch on this a little bit. So the video frames, each video frame, they were isolated using Adobe Premiere Pro version 25.6.4, and they were analyzed after being exported into Adobe Photoshop version 7. Original frames were preserved unaltered with all enhancements performed on duplicate copies to maintain data integrity. Adjustments were limited to global changes with just contrast, color balance, brightness, and desaturation, or desaturation meaning black converted to black and white. And occasionally there was an overall darkening of a background to improve visibility of an area of interest, but no localized editing, compositing, cloning, content-aware processing, or pixel generation techniques were used. For each frame, I adjusted up to 5 derivative versions per frame. And the reason why I used Adobe Photoshop 7.0, it's about probably 20 years old at this point, but I did it because that version was one of the last versions that did not contain AI or machine learning integration. And that's very important because I didn't want there to be any type of AI-driven modification or reinterpretation of the pixel data. So every one of the adjustments that I did them by hand myself to retain the integrity of the original. So frame number 1, like I said, when you view it on a regular media player, you don't really see all the detail that you would when you go frame by frame. So I'm going to go through, and I'm not going to take you through 12,000 or 1,270 frames, but I'm just going through to hit the highlights. So this is frame 1, where the video starts. It opens up what appears to be a dimly lit room with a bay window, a bright ceiling light fixture at the top of the frame. The structure of the light appears to be large, bright, circular band of, and then there's a darker circular disc underneath. There is also a vertical structure underneath the ceiling light structure that was identified as a cell phone tower located about a little over 1,100 feet, which is a quarter mile to the southwest of the witness's townhome. That's at the 153-degree azimuth. Frame number 3. This is this is frames 3 through 5. So a black shadow appears in the top right corner and shrinks into an inverted triangle shape as it moves into the top center of the frame. passing in line and above the circular light ring from right to left. This transient ceiling object makes 17 visible passes during the duration of the video. On frame 36, though this is a little over 1 second in, there's a slight movement at the bottom left of the frame that appears to be a small gray entity in the background, and this is one of the zoomed in versions where I've adjusted the contrast so that you can see them a little bit better. But you can clearly see that, the head shape, the two large eyes, and then almost like a squared off shoulder structure, and then like a rib, almost like a rib cage, for on the torso. It's frame 49. This is a little over 1.5 seconds into the video. Like I said, this 43 seconds for total video length. So this frame was the first in the sequence that shows the two aviation obstruction lights on the cell tower as they begin to flash. The frame shows the two lights flashing together with a deep red hue surrounding the area. The fog-like atmosphere within the room seems to be diffusing the red light throughout the room. Frame 83, a little over almost 3 seconds in, there's some movement that's observed to the far left of the frame that appears to show the large head of a second entity. The figure's head at the bottom of the left corner becomes clear on this frame as well as the next. The large head and large eye structure are reminiscent of an archetypal image of an alien great. And so the picture to the left of the screen is the same as it comes from the whole frame on the right side of the screen. I just tried to clean it up so you could just kind of see the details. Very hard to see, but I don't know, maybe if you squint your eyes a little bit, but there's definitely movement in there when you go frame to frame to frame. Frame 109, this is a little over 3 minutes in. The two obstruction lights flash for a second time, exactly 2 seconds after the first flash, which shows the lights on the tower structure are flashing at a rate of 30 cycles per minute. This pattern conforms to the federal standards described in FAA Advisory Circular AC 7460, which requires aviation obstruction lights on cell towers to flash simultaneously at a rate of 30 flashes per minute. But this is 10 seconds into the video, frame 304. This frame shows the transient ceiling object, not a ceiling fan blade, but I've been calling it the transient ceiling object. It shows it with slightly better clarity and highlights the apparent shape. It also shows a more defined view of the lighter area on the underside of the rotating disc, and suggests that this is some type of physical protrusion or instrument rather than reflected light. Also of note is the disc's edge that has a recessed rectangular geometry moving from right to left or counterclockwise. Frame 313, just after that, this single frame initially appears to be the beginning of another pass of this transient object. However, instead, this dark mass fills the top right of the corner and does not follow through like the subsequent frames did. This dark mass is kind of nebulous and undefined, but similar to the transient object's start point in the previous sequences. Another interesting item to note is the presence of at least 3 well-defined eye or lens-like circular structures on the underside of the mass. These features are reminiscent of the prehensile suckers found on an octopus tentacle, which could indicate that this is a biological component. Frame 318 to 321, this transient object is visible again, past number 5, the beginning of this sequence shows the dark mass in the upper right corner of 318, which is with similar circular objects underneath, much like frame 313 that I just showed you. However, they are much less prominent. The sequence also shows the object in 4 adjacent frames, unlike 3 frames in the previous passes. This could indicate that the object is moving at a slightly slower speed. Frame 319 also gives the impression that it is pushing through a pliable membrane or something on the ceiling. And what I'm describing here is that, imagine if you had a sheet of plastic, like visqueen, and then you spread it out and held it tight, and then you poked your finger or something through the top of it to press down. And that's kind of what this object looks like. Frame 349, this is 11 seconds in. As the intensity of the 6th tower flash increases, several of the floating objects in the room become much more defined. One in particular is the spherical object that seems to be momentarily attached to the white instrument underneath the disc. And throughout this sequence, there are just hundreds of these like spherical balls. I think they're about probably the size of a golf ball, maybe smaller. Some of them may be a little bit larger, but they're hard to see when you're just watching the video. But frame by frame, I mean, these things are all over the place. During these frames, a substantial number of debris is observed in the air, moving right to left just below the rotating disc. Some of these particles appear to be fairly large, can be tracked from one frame to the next. They appear to be solid objects and are large enough to reflect light on one side and shadow on the other side. And I've just kind of taken some samples to show you the variability with these things that are flying around. I can't even speculate what they are, but definitely unusual. In this frame, 487, this is 16 seconds into the video. That there's the tall gray's head is shown with a little better clarity. The eyes are much more defined and appear to be large, black, and almond shaped with a slight reflection on the light side, a reflection of light shown in both. To the right of the frame, the smaller gray's head can be seen slightly turned toward the right of the frame. To the tall gray's right, which is left of frame, there appears to be another being that is closer, maybe within a few feet of the camera, that is much shorter. And the head of this being looks like an amphibian or frog with a very defined prefrontal and postorbital ridge, but above the left and right eyes. And I will. There's another slide that's coming up that'll show that in better detail. And these, the tall gray and the short gray, I converted the frame to black and white, zoomed in a little bit, especially with the, I'm going to use my cursor here, which is going to block the top for just a second. But so the gray's head here is this right here. It's just been converted to black and white, and then I just ever so slightly darken the background. And then with this short gray, I did the same thing, and I enlarged it a little bit, but you can see that is this head structure right here. So it kind of gives you an idea of where these beings are. And then the frog-like being, you can only see half of its head, but I think a lot of you probably noticed that the large eye, which is right here, at one point when the obstruction light flashes, you can see the eye blink. So let's see. All right, so frame 638, this is 21 seconds in. The frame shows the tall gray's face with a little bit greater detail. And once again, it's just enlarged a little bit and converted to black and white. And then I darkened the background so you could see it a little bit better. But you can see the eye structure, the brow structure pretty well. And then another, similar, this frame 659, this is 21 seconds in. It's a little bit clearer view. I didn't convert to black and white because I felt like you could see a little bit more defined with it kept in color. But I just adjusted the contrast a little bit. All right, so at frame 707, this is 23 seconds into the video. Obstruction lights flash. This is the 12th flash. During this sequence, the frog-like being's left eye seems to be reflecting the flash, which is right here. And then the tall gray just to the right of the frog being, this right here, the one that we've been looking at. In this one single frame, this tall gray right here appears to have a frog-like head structure, and this is the only frame that this happens in. So you can see this is one of the frogs right here with his eye reflecting. So this is his mouth right here, and then so this is the gray's head with the eyes being right here, and this line right here, the delineation here is the brow structure, and this is the top of its head. However, this one frame shows what looks like the top of the head is kind of morphed into a frog-like head. So very similar to this eye structure. but this you see like the whole head. I don't know why this appeared like this, but I think near the end of the slideshow, I can show you a possible explanation for it, which is even more bizarre than looking at videos where a gray alien transforms into a frog. So I'll save that for the end. Frame 911, this is 30 seconds into the video. In this frame, the frog being is shown left of frame with the tall gray standing behind to the right. The frame also shows the head, the frog being's head, along with a clearly defined left shoulder. And this is what I'm talking about right here. So this almost looks like an epaulette or something of some type. But you can see the frog's head, large eye. This is the frog-like being's mouth. This is some kind of a uniform, and then you can see the shoulder and arm extending down. Here is the tall gray. And then here's the original unedited screenshot of that frame. Frame 948, during this frame, the reflected light from the center at the lower center frame is present again. I'm talking about this right here. This is the second frog, I believe, that John talked about, the female frog, and I really couldn't get any clear shots. This is about the clearest it got, but it definitely, this defined eye structure that matches the taller frog that's on the other side seems to indicate that this is a second, shorter frog-like being, which is exactly what the witness described. This is something very, very, very similar to the last one. When I lightened this frame a little bit, the tall gray, his figure and facial features were a little bit more pronounced. This is 31 seconds into the video. And this, I believe, this is frame number 986, 32 seconds into the video. This is the unedited image, and you can kind of see, here's the head right here, eyes. But when I converted it to black and white, boy, this thing really popped out. And then I darkened the area around so you could get a little bit, you wouldn't be distracted so much with the background noise, but you can clearly see the large head, black eyes, brow structure, and then here's the mouth structure, neck and shoulders right here. So I think this is, even though it's not a single frame, it's not very clear, converted to black and white, it really pops out. And this is probably my favorite frame of the whole video. In this sequence, this is frame 1068. So this is near the end, 35 seconds in, flash number 18. As the camera pans down, there is this unusual box-like structure at the bottom of the frame here. And I'm not sure what this is. I thought it might be a structure on the floor, but based off of its angle, it appears to be either like a tilted console or something like that. But it also could be the back of the metallic chair that the witness described sitting in. This one frame shows the second tall gray, which is right here. You can see that, the head structure. I mean, honestly, this almost looks like the being from Mars Attacks or something. It's really kind of creepy, but yeah, and it's just a single frame that shows this being that I could isolate. And then again, you can see the transient object that's in view that's blocking the circular ring. And then this is near this 12,050, or I'm sorry, 1,258. This is 41 seconds in, and this shows that white band at the very end that I've already described that does not bleed over. And then there's these multi-colored bubbles that are, when you look at the video frame to frame, these things are kind of traveling up. And then right here in this area, there's something very interesting. And you can see what appears to be like a reptilian head structure. You can see here is a small eyeball, an eyebrow ridge here, and then the similar structure on this side. And it looks like it comes forward. This looks like to be like it's a mouth. And I have another version of this that's lightened up a bit. And it's this frame right here. So I believe that this is the reptilian, Tyrannosaurus-like being that the witness described. This is like a single frame near the very, very end that shows this. And so this is the unedited version, but it's just blown up. And then with this, I just ever so slightly darken the background so um, to make it pop a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. But you can definitely see there's some symmetry here with this head structure, and I believe this is the reptilian. So the location of the event, there's a lot of criticism that this video, critics say that, or skeptics say that it was recorded inside the witness's residence based off the apparent presence of a ceiling-mounted fixture and a nearby cell phone tower that's visible through what appears to be a window. However, the analysis of the tower's configuration and the lighting characteristics strongly suggest otherwise. The structure visible in the recording is consistent with a specific FAA registered cell tower located in Key West. Notably, this is the only tower in the Florida Keys equipped with a dual obstruction light configuration. This is required due to the position of the tower between Key West International Airport and Naval Air Station Key West. The tower is 183 feet tall. It's a three-legged self-supporting lattice structure, and it's got an FCC registration number where you can look up all the details. And it has two synchronized red obstruction beacons mounted near its apex on the north-facing side, spaced approximately 10 feet apart. Now, this is important. These are the two obstruction lights right here, 10 feet apart, and that will come into play on the next slide, this slide. So using that known separation distance that I just said, 10 feet apart, their measured span within the video takes up approximately 10.5% of the image width. The camera to tower distance was calculated using a standard angular size pinhole camera model. Based on the Samsung Galaxy S21's camera characteristics and the horizontal field of view of approximately 39 degrees and a 1.1 recording mode, the estimated distance from the camera lens to the tower is approximately 130 feet. This finding effectively rules out the witness's residence, located over 1,100 feet away or a quarter mile to the southeast as the recording location. Instead, the geometry of the tower and the orientation of its north-facing light array indicate that the recording position was elevated and situated north of the structure approximately 180 feet above the ground, with a position over top that's consistent with a position over top a nearby warehouse and a local industrial park. So with the map here, so this is the witness's residence. This is the golf course. This little in between the buildings is that pathway where he first encountered the gray. He was floated out onto the golf course, and this is where that orange ball was. He was taken aboard the craft. And then down here is the cell tower. So if you calculate that distance out of, being 100 and, I think 130 feet to the north, that places the craft approximately right above this warehouse here, which is a beverage distributor. And so the craft would be right here, approximately 183 feet off the ground. So it's level with the top. And then it's 130 feet to the north, which would put it right here in this approximate location. And then the townhome where the witness lived during the event is located in a golf club community on Stock Island in Key West. While the experiencer no longer lives at the location, photos of the empty unit are available on several realtor websites like Zillow or Realtor.com. For reference, the two photos shown below are the interior living room and the outer covered screen deck. Both photos are oriented toward the southeast, which is the direction of the cell phone tower. The third photo is a zoomed and cropped image that was provided by the witness and shows the cell tower in the distance through the deck screen. Based on this evidence, it would be very improbable that the witness could have staged the scene shown in the video in his living room, especially considering the proximity of the entities, at least 2 of which are located at arm's length from the witness, and the proximity to the cell tower, which was calculated to be 130 feet away from the camera lens that we just talked about. Additionally, the ceiling fan fixture or the ceiling fixture anomaly in the video in no way matches the ceiling fans that are installed in the residence. So the transient ceiling object, one of the things that I looked at with this was that, during the 43-second recording, I identified 17 distinct passes where the object passes through the overhead. This consists of 49 individual frames, and I broke it down even more to 3 separate sequences where it's visible. So what I did was I figured out the timing where this, on each pass of this object, I counted the frames to the next pass. And what I found was that there's a pattern, an alternating pattern of 16 and 11. So the object makes a pass, count 16 frames, it makes another pass, but on this one you only count 11 frames. So it goes back and forth. It's a very consistent 16-11, 16-11 sequence. So when you interpret that, if it were a ceiling fan, then the ceiling fan blade would have to have an asymmetric or scissor pattern. And I did an extensive online search for ceiling fans with asymmetric patterns. I couldn't find a single one. And I'm very confident that what we were looking at is not a ceiling fan. I also noted that this object has its non-uniform, besides its non-uniform frequency, the object's motion does not exhibit a circular or rotational path like a ceiling fan. Instead, it traverses in a linear trajectory that briefly intersects the illuminated ring structure, further contradicting the ceiling fan hypothesis. Structurally, the object displays significant variability across frames, appearing triangular or pyramid-like in some instances, while exhibiting more amorphous organic characteristics in others. In several frames, it gives the visual impression of deforming or pressing against a pliable surface, like we talked about. Collectively, these timing, motion, and shape characteristics are inconsistent with any known lighted ceiling fans and do not support a conventional explanation. The second ceiling structure is the ringed light that sits above the rotating disc. The light itself appears to be a bright yellow and exhibits a steady level of brightness throughout the frames where it is visible. The light ring does not appear to be rotating. However, the transient ceiling object intersects the ring during each visible path. The transient object does not appear to be attached to the light. However, there are numerous frames where the object looks as if it's bending or squeezing the light ring's output from the top and bottom rather than simply blocking it. An example of this effect is shown in frame 320, which is at the bottom. The final element of the ceiling overhead analysis is a very prominent disc structure under the light ring that appears to be either rotating or have a rotating edge. Since there is a large number of flying debris passing in front of the camera, there was consideration that the smaller dark objects along the disc's outer edge may have been pieces of flying debris. However, after careful analysis, it was determined that the dark spots along the edge actually conform to the structure of the disc itself. These spots move from right to left, which would indicate that the disc or edge has a rotating component and is moving counterclockwise if observed from underneath. These dark edge spots seem to change in form during different sequences, and you can see the variability between the top frame and the bottom frame that I showed here. And I'm talking about the edges, not the transient object, the pyramid shape at the top. I'm talking about the edges that appear to have black dots on the top photo, and then underneath you can see where they're extended out. They're like more rectangular. And then underneath the rotating disc structure, there's an unusual element. It's this white colored strip. it is present in every single frame that the disc is visible and does not move. However, the overall shape generally does not change, but there's a great degree of variability with the small dark shapes that appear to be in close proximity or attached to it. One of the clearest views of the object as it appears more rod-like is in frame 298. That's actually that 289, that's the one at the top, and then during the frames in which it's visible. It is often highly distorted, and a few frames show that it changes shape slightly, elongation and retraction, and may possibly be interacting with the flying debris. And then this just shows the box-like structure that I talked about. I don't, like I said, I don't think that this is on the floor or the deck structure. I believe that this is some kind of a console or possibly the chair, but it's very prominent in several different frames. And then the vertical strip on the last frame, this is what I talked about. It seems as if there's, light does not bleed over from the light side to the dark side. Along the edge, you can see that there's, it's almost like a bubbled rainbow, almost like, like this kind of a bubble pattern, and it moves from the bottom up, and the colors don't necessarily move with it. It's like that. It's very, very fluid. But it is odd that the light does not bleed over into the building, which it kind of defies our current understanding of optical physics. Light just doesn't stop in midair. And then these are several frames that show the variability of the delineation between white and dark. So yeah, I've just taken a bunch of the frames with it, and then I just trimmed them down into columns. And then you see here, I think there's 6 of them at different views. And yeah, it's this is a big puzzle. All right, so during the investigation, I had the pleasure of working with a quantum imaging expert and owner, president of a company called Hidden World Quantum Imaging. His name is Stephen Leah, and he specializes in quantum imaging analysis, electromagnetic field, environmental mapping, and detection of energetic phenomenon. He is also the inventor of the company's proprietary photometric processing analysis software that offers the ability to extract useful hidden information within both visible and non-visible spectrums of any photograph or video. Mr. Leah uses classical and quantum-derived physics to achieve an unprecedented unlocking of hard-coded data sets with the imagery itself, and has previously worked with the U.S. Department of Defense, now Department of War, the U.S. Department of Energy, the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, as well as television, as the television show Mystery at Blind Frog Ranch on the Discovery Channel. And what Stephen found with this video is absolutely remarkable. Months before my investigation, Mr. Leah had conducted a detailed forensic analysis of the 1,270 extracted frames and found there to be no evidence of manipulation. He concluded that the video contains authentic, anomalous data consistent with patterns observed in advanced scientific and defense-related research. His examination identified multiple non-random features, including morphing entity-like forms, layered superposition effects, toroidal spin, structures with apparent axial organization, and localized gravitational lensing signatures near the camera, along with recurring craniomaxillofacial constructs resembling distinct beings. And these are like floating heads, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about here in just a second. But the toroidal structures, so if you recall that the frame that I showed you that had I think it was frame 707, and it had the tall gray, and in that one frame, the top of his head looked more like a frog. Well, it just so happens that this is that frame. This is the start of that frame. And you can see the frog-like being with the reflected eye in the bottom left corner. And then the tall gray is kind of blocked out by these weird faces. And on with the quantum analysis that Stephen Leah and his partner, his chief scientist, Dr. Michael Boyd, who's a physicist, what they uncovered was this toroidal structure. And these, so there's an overlay to kind of show you the spheromac and the tokamak. They're basically colloquially known as a wormhole. They show all of the physical structures of this quantum toroidal feature. And then on this other process that Stephen has, he identified and recorded these phantom heads. That's the only way I can describe them. He calls them craniomaxillofacial constructs. But they're streaming out of this, essentially a wormhole behind the tall gray. And I believe that has something to do with, and I don't know what, but it has something to do with why that tall gray momentarily has like a frog-like head instead of the gray head. And I'll play this sequence. So what Stephen did was he isolated frames 700 through 800 of the 1270. And he processed them, and there's like 3 or 4 runs in here. It starts out at normal speed, and then it slows it down 2 or 3 times, and then I think what you'll see here is I think you'll be amazed. There's no audio to this, so this is all visual, and I'll go ahead and start it now. And this is the slowed down version, and as you can see, these are bizarre, absolutely bizarre. And I have some theories on this, but yeah, as we go through here, I mean, the slower it gets, then the more detail you see, and it just becomes creepier and creepier and creepier. And they're all very consistent. Each one has eyes and a mouth, and they are all very, very distinctive. I think this may be the last one where it's slowed down a lot, where you can start to see these things in great detail. This is definitely not pareidoia. Stephen's assessment was that this footage represents a complex and unexplained data set that could not have been fabricated. And I agree with him. All right. So my conclusion and disposition. After spending many hundreds of hours examining this case and its associated video, I feel strongly that it represents one of the most profound and compelling pieces of evidence ever presented for the existence of non-human intelligences. That conclusion isn't made lightly. My analysis included frame-by-frame review of 12,071 discrete images, consultations with imaging specialists such as Stephen Leah, and extensive interviews with witnesses, with a witness, a lifelong experiencer who had undergone regressions with Bud Hopkins, Yvonne Smith, and Dr. Thomas Beck. Taken together, these elements form a body of evidence that I find both credible and authentic, even though the nature of these beings and their technology remain beyond our current understanding. Despite the absence of a clear mechanism or means of validation, this video strongly suggests that the phenomenon itself is real. Based on the evidence provided above and considering all available ancillary aspects of the case, including witness testimony, expert video analysis, multiple independent sources, along with the unexplained anomalies present in the video, I feel confident that this is evidence of a real event that cannot be explained by conventional means, and I close this investigation with the following dispositions. Unknown UAV for the sighting portion, and for the ERT portion, I considered this a substantial evidence case, and those are pretty rare. And one last time before I stop screen share, I'm going to run you through the video one last time so you can see all of these elements.
Holy crap. Holy crap. It's crazy. Fuck.
All right. So that's it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a
I,
lot.
I don't know what to say other than that. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Um, that's an amazing story and lifelong too. I mean, all those other stories and what have you. It's John. Holy
Hi
cow.
guys, what's
Yeah.
happening?
Yeah. Holy
I
cow.
really want to thank Matt for doing such a great job with his long study and his report, and uh, it's really validated a lot of my experience and the video, of course.
Yes, definitely, Matt. You have done some excellent work on this, and the people that you got to work with doing the analysis and everything. That's pretty amazing. I'm glad you were able to do that.
Yeah,
I saw
absolutely.
I saw a message that earlier one of the viewers mentioned some other modality that can maybe help clean things up further. And we are absolutely open to any other methodology, any other methods that can help clean things up more or bring out more. We've never had an audio expert. Matt's done some work on it, but we would love an audio expert to dig deep into it because we might have heard something on there. But yeah, I'm sure there's other methods that could clean things up even more. We have a cleaner version of the tape that Peter did in England. So maybe we'll put that online as well sometimes.
Yeah, that's
Awesome.
Peter Osborne. He has a website called, or a YouTube channel called Truth in Focus. He does amazing work. He's done a lot of stuff with Chris Bledsoe and analyzing some of the orbs that Chris Bledsoe has videotaped. So yeah, Peter Osborne, Truth in Focus YouTube channel. I think one of the other what Scott Roeder with the Evidence Room, I think in maybe Cleveland, Ohio, did some work on it. Um, and then of course Steve and Leah and Hidden Worlds is, I mean,
Scott Roeder was the video expert that really did most of the work on the Las Vegas aliens in the backyard. And he's
Oh, okay.
known for that work. And he was one of the first video guys to authenticate and validate my video.
Wow. Okay, well, let's get to some questions here. So, since we have so many venues, this is kind of how we work it for those people that are new. We'll take a question out of here at Grand Rapids. We'll go to Fargo for a question there, and then online. So just raise your hands if you're online, if you got a question, and we'll get to you. Does anybody here have a question? Really, silence for now. Okay, well, I do have a question. Matt, when in the heck did you get this case, and do you have a real job, or is this case was your only job?
I am thankfully I'm retired from the Coast Guard, so MUFON is kind of my honestly, it's a volunteer job. Sometimes I feel like I put more hours into MUFON than I would a regular job. So, but I got this. John contacted me in November of 2024 and said, "Hey, I've got this video. I'd like to submit it to MUFON," and I encouraged him to do so. And I didn't really hear from him for a while. In the meantime, I think it was December, January, February timeframe, end of 2024, 2020, beginning 2025. John went on Whitley Strieber's podcast. He went on Cameron Brown's podcast, the Cameron Brown Show, and then the other one was that Ryan McLeod's show?
Ryan McLeod Morris.
Yeah. And they showed the video during all three of those podcasts. So when and I didn't know about any of this until I think it was April of 2025. And out of the blue, I got an email notification from the case management system that MUFON uses, and video of inside the UFO. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is the guy. And so I dove in, and I was fascinated from right out of the gate. And I ended up spending 10 months working on this. Just to give you an idea, like, so with 1,270 frames, for each frame that I analyzed, and I analyzed most of them, I would isolate one frame, I'd save the original, and then from that original, I would do multiple versions of it. So one of them I might do contrast only, one of them I might do color variations, one of them I might, do black and white desaturation, and lightening and darkening, and just to see if I could get anything to stand out. So just to do one frame, like 5 versions of one frame like that, was I got it near the end. I got it down to probably a 15-minute process, but even then I can only do 4 frames in 1 hour. So it really consumed my life for 10 months. And, and the thing is, I working with Stephen Leah and learning about his process and getting validation really from, him and, Michael Boyd, the physicist, chief scientist that he works with. As I'm going through this process, I at some point I realized this is the real deal, and I'm looking at the inside of an alien craft, and I'm looking at video of aliens, and I think just because it was just so profound for me, and then as I started, and I really truly went through trying to figure out ways to debunk it, and I absolutely couldn't. Everything kind of fell into place. On its own. And then, the things that I was finding in the video, John, during interviews, we had multiple interviews over the that 10-month period. And like, I'm finding stuff in the video, and then he's telling me about stuff that he, remembered. And it's like, oh, I found something very similar, like the T-Rex and, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it really just kind of consumed me. And, I'm just so happy to share it with everybody. And, I know that for me, I'm sold on it, but obviously there's skeptics out there that will say, baloney. But I would love for somebody to go behind me and redo my steps or do another process that can further validate it, because that's, this isn't the end. This investigation isn't the end. It's really just opening the door for different types of analyses.
Awesome. That's cool. I recommend the YouTube channel Area 52 with Chris Ramsey.
Oh, Chris Ramsey, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that'd be really great. Okay, Paul, do we have anybody in from Moorhead that has a question?
Can you guys hear us over here?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Any questions, guys? I have a question. I guess my understanding of quantum imaging was a little different. I always thought that you needed to use specialized equipment to record video, and that you could not use quantum imaging to analyze existing, video, like the one recorded by the Samsung phone. I guess something that stood out for me was the kind of interesting video of the faces,
Yep.
near the end of your presentation.
Yeah.
Was quantum machine learning or like quantum inspired AI used to kind of generate those?
No, and so it is a proprietary process. I know, like I said, the Hidden Worlds team has worked with, the federal government. They've done a lot. They did work with Lawrence Livermore. I believe Stephen told me that even celluloid films from back in the 50s where they were doing, nuclear testing, and, there's the, out the Bikini Atoll and out in the Pacific back in the 50s, they did that, bluegill triple prime, these detonations where they filmed them at incredibly high speeds, so they could get every detail. And even with the celluloid film, they were able to go in and do an analysis. I don't pretend to understand how that process works, but that work has been done not just with digital videos or digital photos. It's done with pretty much any image that you can present.
Matt, the best way that the easiest way that Stephen explains it is like peeling back layers of an onion, and somehow they're able to do that with all kinds of digital imaging. And there's, as far as I know, there's no AI aspect to it.
Yeah,
But it's a patent protected process, and they can't really tell us how it works, or someone would steal it, basically.
proprietary. Although there are several.
It's all in the data that's there. It's just having the ability and technology to extract that data.
Embedded in the metadata. Okay.
I know there are some white papers out there that Dr. Boyd has worked on. There's also another gentleman out in Australia, a physicist. His last name is Anderson, and forgive me for not remembering his first name, but have done several white papers on the process. And then especially I guess there was a like a Bledsoe-like orb that was in northwestern Australia that was filmed, and this team did a very thorough analysis. It was actually an actual scientific peer-reviewed white paper about that event. But as far as the mechanics of how that proprietary analysis works, I couldn't tell you.
Okay. One really other quick question, kind of a follow-up. I know metadata and telephone videos, images, usually you can find a location stamp in there. Was there I might have missed this. Was there a location embedded in the metadata?
In the metadata that I pulled out of it, I did not find location data. Like I said, I based my location strictly off of the cell phone tower,
Gotcha.
location. But I believe, John, you said that there was another investigator before me that had found the location. I want to say that if at some point I would love to get that phone, that S21 phone, and get a clean copy of the video from the phone, directly from the phone, and see if that
Original
that changes.
Would be very helpful.
Yeah, because and while the metadata that I found, it was as far as dates and times and everything correlate perfectly, but there was no geolocation or GPS data or anything like that. But it could be that the version coming directly off the phone may have something else, because I know there was some data, with the phone itself, we believe, instead of John stopping the video to end the video, that the phone was shut off, which, and then when it was uploaded into the gallery on the phone, didn't happen until like 4:30 in the morning. So it was like 3 hours and 15 minutes of
Hey, Matt, if you'd like, I can explain it real quick. So the video was shot at 1:15 a.m. And so one of the early video experts that analyzed it did have both you get the video details, and then there's the metadata. And typically those things should match, except this time they didn't. I don't know. I have the video details, and then there's the metadata, and I forget which is which. But the video was shot at 1:15 a.m., and it provides the address, and which is about 1/3 a mile away from my townhouse, and it provides that address where the video was shot. But when the video was uploaded to the camera, it provided my home address at 4:30 in the morning.
And
Matt,
so, yeah,
which address do you have related to the video? My home address or the address that's 1/3 of a mile away?
On the metadata, there's no GPS data.
Really?
On the metadata.
I think I have that. I think I have that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I have that. So, and I can also just I still have that phone, of course. I can just hook that phone up to the computer probably and just transfer that original video directly from the phone.
I'm
not sending you the phone because I don't know all the bad pictures on there too.
Oh yeah, I tell you, I'd keep that phone locked in a safe, somewhere, but because I'm sure there's information to be gleaned off of the phone. Yeah,
I tried contacting Samsung corporate in New Jersey, but it was tough to get through to anyone, and no response to the couple of emails I sent.
Okay. Well, thanks, guys. I don't think we have any more questions in Fargo, do we?
Hey, Paul, can you talk up a little? I know I'm kind of deaf, but I can't hear you very well.
Oh, I was saying thanks a lot. I really appreciate the information, and I don't think we have any more further questions from Fargo, so I'll send it back to Jerry.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Anybody online got any questions?
Yeah, Jared, if you can hear me.
Yeah,
This is
Mr.
Mark.
Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was a R&D engineer up at Seagate. I'm retired now, but I did have a little training in MATLAB and used to use it a little bit. But they have routines in there that anything like this would be one of the things that MATLAB is really great at working with, where you can put those files in there and it'll just filter all that stuff through whatever algorithms you want in there, and you should be able to even do it real time with today's computers. Now, I'm not the expert at doing that. I mean, there might be some guys over at Seagate R&D that could do Ed Gage's group that maybe you want to talk to about it. They might want to jump on this.
Yeah, Mark, can you put Matt in touch with those guys?
Well, maybe, yeah.
That's yeah.
Yeah, if you have a
Just,
contact there,
just some contact info, and we'll reach out to them.
All right, I'll see what I can find out.
Great.
I mean,
That'd be
I'll
awesome.
forward the stuff to Jared. He can pass it on to you.
All right, perfect.
Yep, that works.
Yeah. And like I said, like this isn't the end. This is just kind of the primer for more and more analysis of it. It's definitely a lot more stuff that needs to be looked at.
Definitely. But holy cow, still. Okay. Anybody here? Back over to Rapids. All right. Moving on then. Okay. Tori's got his hand raised. Go ahead, Tori.
Yeah, I was just wondering, first of all, I want to thank Matt for all the work you put in on that. My question probably is more for John. In all of your experiences, is there a reason that you might have inferred from them as to why you're experiencing these experiences?
No, unlike many other abductees who seem to have long conversations and have all kinds of good information from the aliens. Up until the video abduction, the only message I ever got was, "Don't worry, we're not going to hurt you." And then the only additional message I got, or at least I remember from the abduction when I took the video, is the one gray to my left, who is more of the militaristic gray, wearing more of a collared, a V-neck collared outfit. I heard from him that he said, "You have a job to do. You have a mission." And that's it. And so those are the only messages I've ever gotten or received that I know of now. I'm sorry?
But you're still trying to figure out what your mission is.
The one thing I really shy away from, which I think a lot of other abductees do, is I don't make any inferences. The facts are just, I stick with what's happened and what I know, and I don't try to make any kind of opinions as to what it could be or anything else, because who knows? If I have a mission, if it's anything, because a lot of people have asked me, I guess it's to get the word out. That's about it. But then again, if they wanted me to get the word out, why would they have scrubbed my memory from remembering that it happened originally?
That kind of seems to be the problem. They're all, saying, hey, let's get the word out or whatever, but nobody is able to remember all these things. So what's the real deal? So, yep, I understand exactly what you're saying.
Well, maybe the fact that they allowed me to take that video, and they, I'm assuming they knew what I was doing, and then he said that, or at least mentally to me, and I only recovered that under regression therapy, but I get pretty deep in the regression sessions, and I'm pretty confident with the results, and I'm not reaching for stuff, and I really just let it come to me.
Okay, well, speaking of the recording itself, I got a couple of questions that go along with that. And they're just basic, real quick questions here. When you did that recording, if you can recall, were you standing up or were you laying down?
Standing.
So you're standing in that room, and so you picked up the phone and you held it out in front of you, or how did you do
Yes,
that?
I from the way the phone looks, I'm assuming I was using two hands like this.
Wow, and they let you do that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
And the frog beings were, I'd say, no more than maybe a few inches more than arm's length from me.
Wow. So very, very close. Now, when you were in that room and you were recording, I'm assuming you could see a lot better than what we can in the video as far as light goes.
Well, I don't know. Well, I wouldn't say that just because my memories are all from regression therapy.
Okay.
So I don't want to make inferences that, my memories are in my head, not from live viewing.
Okay. So really, you don't have a solid recollection of the light level, I guess, in that room is what I'm trying to say.
All I could say is I know it's dark on that side of the ship, while the other side of the ship where they examine you and have the tables, it's extremely light.
Okay.
But obviously I have to imagine, you know what? No, I'm not going to imagine anything.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So I guess that kind of goes into, could you see the beings clearly? But then it kind of goes back to you're not really sure because this is all memory recall.
It's all, all my memory is from regression therapy, but it coincides, essentially with the video.
Yep.
And that provides a lot of validation because I've had regression therapy, from other experiences that didn't have, obviously there's no video. But I'm pretty confident in what's occurred. Just fills in the dots, fills in spaces.
Okay. All right. I noticed, I'm going to skip Fargo. You guys said you're done. If you have anybody else there that has a question, just speak up, Paul. Tim, I believe you had your hand up if you're still here.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for taking my question here. And yeah, John, thank you for sharing your experiences and Matt with all the analysis here. I guess I kind of going back to, we talked about there was I think Dr. Radsky, that I may be pronouncing his name incorrectly, but find it very interesting that he's no longer with us. But, John, have you been able to connect with any others that might have the same tumor or growth?
To expand on the story of what happened, I went to see Dr. Szabo. Dr. Rathke is a guy who discovered the thing. That's what it's named for. Dr. Szabo was my neurologist. So the bigger story is when I went to see him, my wife at the time suggested I go see the neurologist because I was having headaches, which are uncommon. And Dr. Szabo was about 10 years older than me at the time. Super nice guy. He goes, let's send you for an MRI. And I go back to see him. I guess it was almost, 4 weeks later. And he goes, almost everyone comes back and I say, you don't have anything, but you do. We did find something and you shouldn't be worried. You have something you have a tumor in your pituitary section of your brain, just over the nasal cavity. And it's called Rathke's cleft cyst. And this Dr. Rathke discovered this about 35 years ago. Now, I discovered it, I guess it's going on about 28 years ago. And so it was 35 years before that. And he goes on to say that it's always benign. It's about the size of a small BB. He gave me the size at the time, like 0.04 millimeters or whatever it was. I'm just making this up now. But he said it's, and so he's telling me things about it, that it's just over your nasal cavity and your pituitary. He says that Dr. Rathke believes about 2% of the world's population has this. And most people don't know because unless you're having an MRI, you wouldn't know. It's benign. It doesn't grow. It's just there.
Yeah.
Well, I had read a book that David Jacobs and Bud Hopkins had written together. And in that book, they had claimed that they thought that 2 to 3% of the world's population could be getting abducted, which is a huge number. And their book came out a year before Dr. Rathke's pronouncement of Rathke's cleft cyst, which is wild. So Dr. Szabo said a lot of different things to me that all started adding up in my head to alien abduction with this thing. So I say to Dr. Szabo, I said, Dr. Szabo, I picked the pen up off his desk. And I said, Dr. Szabo, if I could balance the BB on the end of the pen, the size of what's in my pituitary, and I put it up my nose as far as it could go, and then I went, boom. He cut me off. He goes, well, the BB would end up around in your pituitary, depending on how hard you hit the pen, and it would end up around the same place as your Rathke's cleft cyst. And he says to me, do you think you're an alien abductee? I'm like, what? This is my neurologist. And, I said to him, Dr. Szabo, why do you ask me that? He goes, well, this is kind of weird, but I have 2 other patients. They're both about my age, 10 years older than I am, his age. And one is a female who's an attorney, and the other is a male who's a CPA. And he said 4 years ago, prior to my visit with him, the woman was sitting there, and he explained to her how she has Rathke's cleft cyst and went through all of it with her. And she very matter-of-factly said to Dr. Szabo, oh, it's an alien implant. I'm a lifelong abductee, and I'm pretty sure that's an alien implant. And he kind of played it off and just shook his head and, yesed her and thought she was crazy. And then a year later, same thing happened with this guy who's a CPA, another good member of the community. And he said, it's an alien implant. I'm an abductee, what you've described as the implant in my head. And Dr. Szabo pointed out on his bookshelf the self-published book the guy wrote of all his abductions. And then Dr. Szabo says to me, so now you're here telling me you're an alien you're here telling me that you think that's an alien implant too. And this was 2 years after the last guy. I said, Dr. Szabo, I don't know whether it's an alien implant, but I can tell you I am a lifelong abductee. And as a kid, I had endless nosebleeds in the middle of the night, just waking up with my nose bleeding. So I have spoken to endless number of people that, hey, let's do some type of investigation with Rathke's cleft cyst. I just haven't found the right people. I've talked to university people and others. And essentially in a university setting, we can take 100 random people that have Rathke's cleft cyst, and you give them a really good survey on abduction. See if there's any chance they could be abductees. And then you take 100 potential people who are likely abductees or people who think they've been abducted, and you give them all brain MRIs. And technically, of 100 random people, 2 should have Rathke's cleft cyst. Well, if you have 100 abductees and all of a sudden you have 3, 4, 5, 6 times the number, maybe there's something there to it.
Yeah, yep, for sure. Definitely.
Oh, and one other thing. I walked away from the screen a little. And Matt, I don't know if it was part of your presentation. Did you show the picture of my head that Stephen Leah did?
Oh no, that's not part of the presentation, but
you gotta throw that in there. So Stephen Leah took a picture of my head, and with his method, essentially you get results that look like an MRI. And there's different coloring and as to things. And so I never told Stephen about the Rathke's cleft cyst in my head, and I sent him the picture, and he did the analysis, and you could see right where the third eye would be, it shows a red spot, and it's emanating 3 waves. And without me ever telling Stephen about the thing in my head, Stephen, after he analyzes the picture, he goes, "What the fuck do you have on in your brain, and why is it emanating electrical waves?"
All right, Matt, you got to send me that picture. That's getting
I've-
spliced in.
Yeah, let's see. I've got it right here. Let's see. Let's see if I can share this. Let me go back.
Okay.
So let me do share screen again.
While he's doing that, does anybody here in this room have another question? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you guys see
There
that?
you go.
Yeah.
Well, we can't accept it's blocking off the top of it.
Hopefully it'll disappear here in just a second.
Yeah.
That's the third eye,
Yeah.
and
There you
I
go.
can pick up New York Met games on that.
So he just took that. So he just took a regular picture of you and did whatever it is that he does, and that's what showed up.
Yeah,
Wow,
Yeah.
that is amazing.
I was
Yep, right
wearing if you could see, I was wearing a hat with the Grateful Dead logo at the top.
there.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah,
amazing.
That's cool.
That
All
is. Okay. I
Oh,
think
and
we have. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
had walked away, and Matt, had you mentioned what happened to Dr. Zabo?
Yeah, that he passed away from an apparent suicide a few
He
months
after not, within the year after I reached out to him unsuccessfully to get in touch with him, I found out he allegedly committed suicide.
Yeah, pretty weird.
And at the time, he was head of the neurology department at a very big medical practice in Westchester.
Very suspicious, for sure. Okay, I see Millie's got a question.
Hi. Okay, Matt, thank you for your presentation. It was wonderful and very precise.
Oh, thank you, Millie.
You're welcome. So I have a very wild imagination. So here's what I was thinking about. Well, now, first of all, my brother also had a pituitary cyst. But he's dead now, so I couldn't ask him if he was abducted or not. But he never said he was. Okay, so the other thing was, as far as the videos, when you said that little thing that was going around and around the room,
Right.
I'm thinking, and you don't know how aliens work, but maybe that was a higher alien, an officer, watching what everybody else was doing.
That could be. I will tell you this. So a very good friend of mine is she's a lifelong abductee. I spoke to her, I think last year, and she was telling me a story about one of her abductions. She said that when she was being led through the ship, that she reached out and she touched the bulkhead as they were bringing her into like the exam room or one of the other rooms. And she said the minute that her hand touched the wall, like she connected to the ship, like the ship was a living consciousness. And the whole time I'm looking at these like octopus like structures that are rotating around the ceiling on this video, I couldn't help but think like, is this part of the living craft? I mean, is it like somehow biological, not nuts and bolts, but maybe the craft itself is an entity in itself? It raises all kinds of interesting questions, and the great thought experiment. But I mean, I trust my friend who had that experience, and I believe it when she tells me this. So
I never had that feeling. I thought it was a nuts and bolts craft all the way. Yeah. I'm not saying that they don't have some type of biological interface, possibly. Who knows? But I totally believe it's a nuts and bolts craft.
I will tell you, I wanted to bring up one thing though. There's a with these frogs. So I have never come across these, frog beings in any other cases. I did some pretty extensive research looking for other cases with them. I really couldn't find any. And then shortly after I I finished up this the report. This would have been in the end of February of this year. I was listening to Area 52, Chris Ramsey, and he was interviewing a gentleman named Eric Nan Steele. And Eric Nan Steele, lifelong abductee, he was on during the interview with Chris Ramsey. It was talking about that he had some kind of gastrointestinal issue, and that this doctor or alien healer cured him. And so Chris Ramsey was trying to like, well, what did he look like? What kind of being was this? And it was like, you could tell that Eric was very hesitant about saying what kind of being it was. And he finally spit it out and he said, well, it was like a frog. It was like a frog doctor. Now, this is like, he wrote about it in his book. I can't. Let's see. It's called "Angst in the Shadows: A True Story of Alien Abductions." Eric Nan Steele is his name. He wrote about that in his book, but I don't believe it was published until like the timing just wasn't right. Like he had no idea that John's experience with the frogs and vice versa. So I thought that was fascinating. But he had kind of the similar thing that these frog beings are like healers, doctors, physicians, kind of thing, which is exactly what John described.
Yeah,
And
I
then
think I
also
remember
what
seeing that one.
Matt, also what Preston went on to tell you.
Yeah, Preston Dennett, I reached out to him, and he did have several, maybe a half a dozen examples through, last, 70 years or so, a lot of them in Europe, that had, frog-like beings, but
The Dogon tribe.
oh yeah, so I think the Dogon tribe, that's like the North African tribe with they worship the dog star Sirius, and they knew about the rotational period of this binary star, like literally centuries before the astronomers figured out that that Sirius was even a binary star. So like there's this indigenous hidden this information that is provided to these cultures.
Well, and the Dogon people, the aliens that they claim were from that place, they claim were frog-like
Frogs, yeah,
aliens.
that's right. Yeah, I'd
Frog
forgotten about
aliens.
that.
That's
Yeah,
why I brought it up.
yeah, that's cool.
Yep. That's another interesting story for sure. So, Millie, do you have your hand up again?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so back to my wild imagination. When you were showing the pictures of the alien's head with all the little tiny heads in it,
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was seeing things. And it's like, okay, so what is this? And then I thought, once again, you don't know what aliens do or how they think. Maybe everyone that alien abducted is embedded in his body, in his head. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's funny, Bob Lazar, whether you feel like he's the real deal or not, but he mentioned something about when he was working at S4 that he was given information. Now this could have been false information to see if he would spread it, which he obviously did, but he said that he was briefed that these aliens described us as containers of souls, and I guess there's some speculation there as to what that means, but I kind of feel like so within the Hidden Worlds work that where they uncovered these wormhole features, the toroidal spin features that were in the middle of this room, and it seems like all of those disembodied craniomaxillofacial features that were streaming out of that wormhole. I kind of thought that, hey, maybe this wormhole. Now, what's a wormhole doing in the middle of the spaceship? What are they using this toroidal structure for? And I thought maybe they are transmitting information, and with their technology, they are able to create like living beings. The structure of the craft, maybe it's so. For instance, I know this sounds far-fetched, but think about like I'll use a Star Wars analogy. In Star Wars, they communicate using these holograms. They can be on the other side of the galaxy, and then they have this little thing, and the hologram pops up, and then they can have a 360 dimensional view that
Right, right,
you can put your hand through, but then you can also communicate with it like it's a real person.
right.
And I'm thinking, what if these entities have developed a technology where they can actually transmit an avatar of themselves into our reality? Maybe they're from
To
they're
what? To see
transmitting.
what's going on. They were like the audience.
Well, I'm thinking, well, maybe if they're interdimensional, maybe they're transmitting it into our dimension, or if they're in another part of our galaxy, maybe they're transmitting this information, here. But maybe this stream of heads may be the constructs that form like their physical being.
Right.
You can reach out and touch, and they can interact with you. Maybe it's like a 3D transmission that somehow forms matter and living matter.
Rather, Matt, if I can jump in, rather than them having a camera and sending out a signal of what's going on the ship to everybody else is coming in to watch.
Right. Yeah, that could be. That very well could be. That's a good one too. But I mean, everything's all speculation at this point. But
Right.
but it's that's how thought experiments may lead to something more concrete.
Right.
Definitely. Wow. Thank you for that question, Millie.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions at all? Everybody good over there in Moorhead?
Nope, nothing.
Okay,
More.
I got one more question for John, and I might have missed it because Matt, you might have covered it because all those experiences at the beginning were just amazing. I was enthralled listening to it.
That's just like the tip of the iceberg, I believe. I know that John's got a lot more.
Really, John, I hope you're writing all these down, or someone's writing them all because I want to read them.
Yeah.
Okay, so John, did you always know you're an experiencer, or did these things start happening when you were undergoing hypnosis?
No, from as early as I can remember, as a kid, I'm 60 years old now. So when I was a kid in elementary school, without anyone urging me or pushing me, I was taking out every UFO book out of the library when I was a kid. And anytime I had a book report that I could do on my own issue, I chose UFOs. I remember in 6th grade, I did a big report on UFOs and stuff, and my teacher was kind of freaked out about, like, I put things in about aliens visiting me, and boy, I wish I had that report now to read because I don't remember it all. But no, I've always been fascinated with the subject. No one steered me in that direction. It was all on my own. When I was 21 years old, I was out to dinner in New York City with my parents and my sister, who was 17. And I said to my parents, I said, listen, I've been into the topic for a long time. And I got to tell you, I really think I've been abducted by aliens a number of times in my life. And I went on to explain how many abductees have scoop mark scarring, and how many, at the time, I explained how many men have it on the lower, below their calf muscles and the back of their legs. And that's where the most pronounced scoop mark at the time that I had. I also explained how many women have these scoop mark scars around their bikini line. And so my dad was a military guy. He didn't want to hear it. And my mom just was uncomfortable talking about it. My mom is 89 years old now, and for the first time believes it all. But as we're leaving the restaurant, and we're about just half block down, my parents are in front of me and my sister. My sister grabs me by the elbow. She stops me. She was wearing stretchy pants. She picks up her shirt, pulls down her pants line a little, and shows me the scoop mark scar And she goes, "You totally freaked me out. I've had this scar my whole life. I don't know where it came from." And the only my sister does have memories, and this is going back talking to her 25, 30 years ago, that she remembers small men coming into a room at night and taking her through the wall. Her son, her youngest of three, remembers a life-size crow coming through his ceiling. Both of my sons, I have a son with autism. One day when my wife and I were in the kitchen, he comes running into the kitchen, flapping his arms, saying, "Mommy, Daddy, Mommy, Daddy, the man took me in his truck last night." And we looked at each other and we gently questioned him. And what do you mean? The little man took me. I'm sorry, shouldn't use my kid's name. Took him and his brother, took me and his brother into his truck last night, and then brought us back. And we checked our bodies, and both of my boys and I had the same exact 1.5-inch scar on our ankle, right inside ankles. The three of us had the same exact scar, and we had pictures of it.
Wow.
We took a dime and we put a dime next to the scar on each of us, and we each had the same 3 scars.
Yeah. Well, this runs in the family. That's usually how all this stuff goes. So.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I don't know if there's any more questions. I think, Paul, we're good over there. We're good here.
No. I got a question.
Millie's at it again. All right, Millie.
John, what does that mean on your shirt?
Anybody like Star Trek Next Generation?
Oh, we all love Star Trek.
And I just got this shirt this week, and I can't wait to wear it. If you remember this episode.
Tanagra.
Oh, it's backwards.
Yeah.
Darmok and Jalad at
okay.
Tanagra. When the card was on the planet with the alien who talked in soliloquies, and it has the star date, and it says Shaka when the walls fell.
Awesome.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Very cool.
All right. Awesome.
There you go,
right,
Millie G.
Anybody else have any questions? No? Okay. Well, then we're going to wrap it up here. Coconut? Really? All right. No. No, definitely. No, definitely. You're still here. Well, since you've made it here to the end of the video, thanks a lot for watching. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff. It helps us out a lot. Appreciate it. Thanks. So you were just out randomly collecting rocks? Huh.
I think that might have been the best MUFON meeting I've been to.